Maya Chen sat in the back corner of advanced xenobiology, her worn notebook balanced on her knees as she sketched the alien creature Professor Valdris was dissecting. While her classmates leaned forward with eager expressions, she remained invisible behind a curtain of black hair that had seen better days. The expensive neural interface headsets that most students wore gleamed like jewelry, but Maya made do with an outdated tablet that flickered when she touched the screen too hard. "Miss Chen," Professor Valdris called out suddenly, his reptilian features twisted in what might have been amusement. "Perhaps you could enlighten us about the Catherian respiratory system since you seem so engaged with your artwork." Snickers rippled through the classroom. Maya looked up, her dark eyes meeting the professor's without flinching. She had grown used to being the target of such moments. Her scholarship status was no secret at the prestigious Galactic Academy, where most students arrived in private shuttles while she took 3 different transit pods just to reach the campus. "The Catherians have a dual-chamber system," she said quietly, her voice barely carrying over the hum of the life support systems. "But the interesting part isn't the breathing. It's how they can survive in methane atmospheres by switching their cellular metabolism. The secondary organs aren't just backup lungs, they're biological reactors that convert toxic gases into usable energy." The classroom fell silent. Professor Valdris blinked slowly, his nictitating membrane sliding across his eyes in what Maya had learned was his species' equivalent of surprise. Even her classmates turned to stare, though whether from amazement or mockery she couldn't tell. "That's correct," the professor said finally, "though I'm curious how you came to that conclusion without accessing the advanced database." Maya shrugged, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. She didn't mention the countless hours she spent in the Academy's public archives, reading every xenobiology text she could find, because she couldn't afford the premium access codes. She didn't talk about how she analyzed tissue samples from the kitchen scraps of exotic alien cuisines, or how she had taught herself 12 different alien languages by listening to maintenance crews during her work-study shifts. After class, she gathered her things slowly, waiting for the room to empty. As she headed for the door, she overheard Zara Kellerman, daughter of a famous terraforming magnate, talking to her friends near the holographic display. "Did you see Chen trying to show off?" "Probably memorize some basic facts to impress Valdris, as if knowing textbook information makes her special." Zara's laugh was sharp and cutting. "My father says humans from the outer colonies always try too hard to prove themselves. It's kind of pathetic, really." Maya's steps didn't falter, but her grip tightened on her tablet. She had heard variations of this conversation more times than she could count. To her classmates, she was just another charity case, a token human from the frontier worlds who didn't belong among the elite children of core world politicians and business leaders. What they didn't know was that Maya had grown up on Kepler 442b, a world where humans survived by understanding every detail of their alien environment, where knowing the difference between safe and deadly wasn't academic. It was the difference between life and death. Where she had learned to read alien behavior patterns not from textbooks, but from the creatures that shared her harsh homeworld. As she walked through the Academy's gleaming corridors, past students who moved in clusters of wealth and privilege, Maya allowed herself a small smile. Let them think she was just a scholarship student trying too hard. Let them believe that her knowledge came from desperate studying and lucky guesses. Tomorrow would bring another day of being overlooked, another day of sitting in the back of classes while her peers showed off their expensive equipment and family connections. But Maya knew something they didn't. Sometimes the most dangerous abilities were the ones nobody saw coming. In her pocket, her personal communicator buzzed with a message from the Academy Administration Office. Her heart sank, expecting another reminder about her overdue fees or a notice about her precarious scholarship status. Instead, she found something that made her stop walking entirely. "Student Chen, report to Dean Morrison's office immediately. Priority Alpha clearance required." Priority Alpha clearance was reserved for military operations and planetary emergencies. Maya had never even seen a Priority Alpha message, let alone received one. As she changed direction toward the administrative wing, her mind raced through possibilities. Had she violated some Academy regulation she wasn't aware of? Was her scholarship in more trouble than she thought? The dean's office was located in the oldest part of the Academy, where the walls were made of actual stone rather than the modern polymer materials used in the newer buildings. Maya had never been this deep into the administrative section. and the gravity of the situation began to settle over her like a heavy blanket. Dean Morrison's secretary, a polite cetacean whose translation device gave her words a melodic quality, gestured toward the inner office. "The dean is waiting for you, Miss Chen. Please go right in." Maya pushed open the heavy door and stepped into an office that seemed to belong to another era. Real books lined the walls, and the dean sat behind a massive wooden desk that must have cost more than Maya's family made in a year. But it wasn't the expensive furnishings that caught her attention. It was the man sitting beside the dean, Admiral Torres of the Galactic Defense Force, wore his uniform with the kind of casual authority that came from decades of command. His weathered face and cybernetic left arm spoke of battles fought in the far reaches of space. When he looked at Maya, she felt as though he was seeing something others had missed. "Miss Chen," Dean Morrison began, his voice carefully neutral, "Admiral Torres has a proposition for you, one that could change the trajectory of your entire academic career." Maya remained standing, her hands clasped behind her back in a pose she had learned from watching military documentaries. "I'm listening, sir." The Admiral leaned forward, his biological eye never leaving her face. "We have a situation, Miss Chen, a situation that requires someone with your particular talents." Admiral Torres activated a holographic display that filled the center of the dean's office with swirling stars and tactical readouts. Maya recognized the system immediately. Proxima Centauri, humanity's first successful extrasolar colony. But something was wrong with the display. Several planets showed red warning indicators, and debris fields marked what had once been orbital stations. 72 hours ago, we lost contact with the Proxima system, the Admiral said, his voice grim. All 12 worlds went dark simultaneously. No distress signals, no emergency beacons, nothing. Our long-range sensors detect massive bio-readings where our colonies used to be. Maya studied the hologram, noting the patterns of destruction. The orbital installations were targeted first, she observed. Communications arrays, defense platforms, shipyards. Whatever did this wanted to isolate the system before moving on the planetary surfaces. Dean Morrison raised an eyebrow. "That's a remarkably astute observation, Miss Chen." "It's basic predatory behavior," Maya replied, still focused on the display. "You cut off the prey's escape routes before you strike. But the bio reading suggests this wasn't just an attack, it was an infestation." Admiral Torres exchanged a glance with the Dean. "Our thoughts exactly. We believe we're dealing with a previously unknown species that operates unlike anything in our databases. 3 reconnaissance vessels have been dispatched to investigate. None have returned." The hologram shifted to show a sleek vessel unlike any Maya had seen before. It was organic in appearance, with flowing curves that suggested it had been grown rather than built. Bioluminescent patterns pulsed along its hull like a heartbeat. "This was the last image transmitted by the RSV Intrepid before we lost contact," the Admiral continued. "Our xenobiology experts are baffled. The ship appears to be partially organic, but it's using technology we don't understand. We need someone who can think outside conventional parameters." Maya circled the hologram, studying the alien vessel from every angle. The design reminded her of something, but she couldn't quite place it. "You have the full resources of the Galactic Defense Force," she said carefully. "Why come to a student?" "Because our experts are trained to think in established patterns," Dean Morrison answered. "They approach problems with preconceived notions about how alien technology should function. You, Miss Chen, have demonstrated a remarkable ability to see connections others miss." The Admiral nodded. "Your professor shared some of your work with us. Your analysis of Catherian biology led to breakthroughs in atmospheric processing that our researchers had missed for decades. You don't just memorize facts, you synthesize them into new understanding." Maya felt a flush of pride, quickly suppressed. "What exactly are you asking me to do?" "Join a reconnaissance mission to the Proxima system," Admiral Torres said. "We're assembling a small team of specialists. You would serve as xenobiological analyst, helping us understand what we're facing and how to combat it." The room fell silent except for the soft hum of the holographic projector. Maya stared at the swirling display, her mind racing. This was beyond anything she had imagined possible. Students didn't get recruited for military missions, especially not scholarship students from the outer colonies. "There's something you're not telling me," she said finally. "The Galactic Defense Force doesn't recruit civilians for active missions unless the situation is desperate." The Admiral's expression grew darker. The bio-readings from Proxima show exponential growth. Whatever took our colonies is expanding rapidly. If we don't stop it there, it could spread to other systems. Earth itself could be at risk. Maya absorbed this information, feeling the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. When do we leave? Tomorrow at 600 hours, the Admiral replied. But Miss Chen, I need you to understand this isn't a simulation or a field study. This is a combat mission into unknown territory. You could be killed. She thought of her family on Kepler 442b, struggling to make ends meet on a world where every day was a battle for survival. She thought of her classmates who saw her as nothing more than a charity case, unworthy of their respect. Most of all, she thought of the 12 worlds that had gone silent, and the millions of lives that might depend on understanding this new threat. I understand the risks, Maya said, but I also understand that sometimes knowledge is the most powerful weapon we have. Dean Morrison stood and extended his hand. Your scholarship obligations will be suspended for the duration of the mission. Win or lose, you'll have a place at this academy when you return. As Maya shook the dean's hand, she noticed Admiral Torres studying her with an expression that was part curiosity, part concern. There's one more thing, Miss Chen. The team you'll be joining, they're not typical military personnel. We've recruited specialists from across the galaxy, including some individuals with questionable backgrounds. You'll need to prove yourself quickly if you want their respect. Maya smiled, the expression transforming her normally serious features. Admiral, I've been proving myself my entire life. The only difference is that now someone might actually notice. The next morning arrived faster than Maya had expected. She stood in the Academy's military shuttle bay, a small duffel bag containing her few possessions slung over her shoulder. The other students were still asleep in their luxurious dormitories, unaware that one of their overlooked classmates was about to embark on a mission that could determine the fate of human civilization. The shuttle that would take her to the main fleet was a military transport, functional rather than comfortable. As she climbed aboard, Maya caught sight of her reflection in the polished metal hull. The same unremarkable girl who had sat in the back of xenobiology class just yesterday stared back at her. But something in her eyes had changed, a spark of purpose that hadn't been there before. As the shuttle lifted off from the academy, Maya pressed her face to the small porthole and watched the campus shrink below her. Somewhere down there, Zara Kellerman was probably sleeping peacefully, never knowing that the girl she had dismissed as pathetic was now humanity's best hope for understanding a threat unlike anything they had ever faced. The shuttle climbed toward the stars, carrying Maya toward a destiny that would either prove her worth beyond any doubt or destroy her in the attempt. The GDF Prometheus was unlike any vessel Maya had ever seen, even in the Academy's military history archives. The massive dreadnought stretched nearly 2 kilometers from bow to stern, its hull bristling with weapons systems and sensor arrays. As her shuttle approached the main hangar bay, Maya caught glimpses of other craft docked along the ship's sides. Sleek fighters, heavy assault vehicles, and vessels of obviously alien design. The hangar bay was a controlled chaos of activity. Technicians in environmental suits worked on exotic machinery, while teams of Marines ran combat drills in full battle armor. Maya felt completely out of place in her simple academy uniform, clutching her duffel bag like a security blanket. "Chen?" a gruff voice called out as she stepped off the shuttle ramp. Maya turned to see a massive figure approaching, easily 7 feet tall with cybernetic augmentations covering half his body. His remaining human eye studied her with undisguised skepticism. "I'm Commander Voss," he said, his voice carrying the mechanical undertone of a vocal implant. "I run tactical operations for this mission. I was told to expect a xenobiology specialist, not a teenager." Maya straightened her shoulders, meeting his gaze despite the intimidation factor. "I'm 22, Commander, and I'm here because Admiral Torres believes I can help identify whatever destroyed the Proxima colonies." Voss snorted, a sound that emerged as static through his artificial larynx. "Torres believes a lot of things. Come on, kid. Let me introduce you to the rest of the team. Try not to embarrass yourself." He led her through corridors that hummed with barely contained energy. The Prometheus was a ship built for war, and every surface reflected that purpose. Emergency lighting cast red shadows in the corners, and the deck plates vibrated with the rhythm of massive engines. They entered a briefing room where 4 individuals sat around a holographic tactical display. Maya's first impression was that this couldn't possibly be an official military team. They looked more like a collection of mercenaries and outcasts. "Team, meet our xenobiology expert," Voss announced with barely concealed sarcasm. Maya Chen, academy student and apparent miracle worker. A woman with intricate tattoos covering her shaved scalp looked up from the display. Her eyes were an unnatural silver color, clearly artificial. "I'm Dr. Kira Thorne," she said, her accent suggesting origins in the Outer Rim colonies. "Xenopsychology and first contact protocols. Don't let Voss intimidate you. He's just upset because they assigned a kid to analyze threats he can't shoot." The man beside her was clearly not human. His elongated skull and forearms marked him as Altarian, one of humanity's oldest alien allies. When he spoke, his voice carried musical undertones that made Maya think of wind chimes. "I am Scholar Zephyr of the Third Harmony. I study patterns in chaos, which seems appropriate for this mission." The third team member was human but looked like she had spent years in combat zones. Scars crossed her hands and forearms, and her military bearings suggested special forces training. "Captain Sarah Reeves, Marine Reconnaissance. I'm here to keep everyone alive while you figure out what we're fighting." The last member of the team surprised Maya the most. He appeared to be no older than she was, with the pale complexion of someone who spent too much time in front of computer screens. But when he smiled, she caught a glimpse of intelligence that reminded her of the Academy's most brilliant professors. "Marcus Webb," he said, extending a hand that was surprisingly strong. "I hack things that aren't supposed to be hackable. Alien technology, quantum encryption, interdimensional barriers, if it has code. I can break it." Maya shook each hand in turn, acutely aware that she was the only one without impressive credentials or obvious expertise. "I study alien biology," she said simply. "I try to understand how different species think and adapt." Dr. Thorne gestured to an empty chair. "Sit. Let's see what our miracle student makes of this mess." The holographic display activated, showing the same alien vessel Maya had seen in the dean's office. But now there were additional images, close-up scans of the hull, energy readings, and what appeared to be internal structural diagrams. "This is everything we've managed to gather before losing contact with our reconnaissance teams," Captain Reeves began. "The vessel appears to be a hybrid of organic and technological components. The hull shows characteristics of both grown tissue and manufactured materials." Maya studied the readings carefully, her mind automatically cataloging the various anomalies. "The energy signature is wrong," she said after several minutes. "This isn't just hybrid technology, it's parasitic." Scholar Zephyr's four eyes focused on her with sudden interest. "Explain." "Look at the power distribution," Maya said, highlighting sections of the display with her finger. "The organic components aren't just integrated with the technology, they're feeding off it. This ship was built by one species and then infected by another." The room fell silent. Commander Voss leaned forward, his cybernetic eye whirring as it focused on the display. "You're saying something took over this vessel?" "Not took over," Maya corrected. "Consumed. The original builders are probably still there, but they're not in control anymore. They're being used as biological computers, their nervous systems repurposed to run systems they never designed." Dr. Thorne's silver eyes widened. "That's horrifying. But it would explain the rapid expansion we're seeing. If this species can convert other life forms into components of their technology, then every world they conquer becomes a factory for building more ships." Captain Reeves finished grimly. "How do we fight something like that?" Maya continued studying the scans, her mind racing through possibilities. Growing up on Kepler 442b had taught her to recognize parasitic relationships in alien ecosystems. She had seen how certain organisms could completely alter the behavior of their hosts while keeping them alive and functional. "We need to understand the conversion process," she said finally. "If we can figure out how they're controlling their hosts, we might be able to reverse it, or at least disrupt it long enough to fight back." Marcus Webb looked up from his own analysis tablet. "I've been studying the data streams coming from the vessel. There's definitely some kind of networked intelligence controlling everything, but the encryption is unlike anything I've ever seen. It's not just mathematical, it's biological, which means you'll need more than traditional code-breaking techniques," Maya realized. "You'll need to understand the neural patterns of the controlling organism." Commander Voss stood abruptly, his mechanical components whirring with the motion. "This is all fascinating theory, but we have a mission to complete. In 6 hours we jump to the Proxima system. Whatever's waiting for us there, we need to be ready to fight it. As the team dispersed to their various preparations, Dr. Thorne lingered behind. Chen, she said quietly, you did well in there. Don't let Voss's attitude get to you. He's seen too many promising young officers die in situations like this. Maya nodded, understanding the warning behind the words. Dr. Thorne, can I ask you something? Why did they really recruit a student for this mission? There have to be experienced xenobiologists who could analyze these threats. The older woman's expression grew thoughtful. Because experienced experts think in established patterns. They approach unknown phenomena with the assumption that they can be understood through familiar frameworks. You don't have those limitations yet. Sometimes fresh eyes see solutions that experienced minds miss. As Maya made her way to her assigned quarters, she reflected on Dr. Thorne's words. All her life, she had been dismissed for her lack of experience and credentials. Now, for the first time, those perceived weaknesses might actually be advantages. Her quarters were small but functional, with a single porthole that showed the starfield rotating slowly as the Prometheus adjusted its course. In just a few hours, they would jump into hyperspace and begin the journey to Proxima Centauri. Maya pressed her hand against the cool metal of the bulkhead and tried to imagine what they would find there. Whatever had consumed the Proxima colonies was unlike anything humanity had encountered before. But Maya had spent her entire life studying alien organisms that others considered impossible to understand. Now she would have the chance to apply that knowledge on a scale she had never imagined. As she unpacked her few belongings, Maya allowed herself a small smile. Tomorrow she would either prove that an overlooked student could save human civilization, or die trying. The hyperspace jump to Proxima Centauri took 18 hours, but Maya barely slept. She spent most of the journey in the ship's xenobiology lab, analyzing every piece of data they had collected about the alien vessels. The lab was state-of-the-art, equipped with quantum microscopes and biosynthesis chambers that made the Academy's facilities look primitive by comparison. Dr. Thorne found her there at 0400 hours, hunched over a holographic molecular display showing what appeared to be some kind of neural network. Find something interesting? She asked, settling into the chair beside Maya. More than interesting, Maya replied, her voice hoarse from hours of concentration. Terrifying. Look at this neural pathway structure. She highlighted a complex web of interconnected nodes that pulsed with bioluminescent activity. It's not random, it's organized like a hive mind, but with individual consciousness nodes still intact. Dr. Thorne leaned closer, her silver eyes reflecting the glow of the display. You're saying the infected hosts maintain their individual awareness while being controlled by the collective? Exactly. They know what's happening to them, but they can't stop it. The parasite, I'm calling it the collective for now, doesn't just take over their bodies. It integrates their consciousness into a larger network while keeping their personalities and memories intact. It's the perfect psychological torture. The implications hit Dr. Thorne immediately. If humans are infected and we encounter them in combat, we'll be fighting our own people, Maya finished. People who are screaming inside their own minds but forced to attack us anyway. The collective isn't just conquering worlds, it's creating an army of unwilling slaves who remember being free. Before Dr. Thorne could respond, the ship's intercom crackled to life. All senior staff to the bridge. We're dropping out of hyperspace in 30 minutes. The bridge of the Prometheus was a cathedral of technology, with dozens of officers manning stations arranged in concentric circles around a central command platform. Admiral Torres stood at the center, his cybernetic arm interfaced directly with the ship's tactical systems. When Maya and Dr. Thorne arrived with the rest of the team, his expression was grim. Sensors are already picking up massive energy signatures from the Proxima system, he announced. Whatever's happening there, it's big enough to detect from 3 light-years away. The main display activated, showing their destination as a swirling vortex of hyperspace energy. In just minutes, they would emerge into normal space and face whatever had consumed humanity's first interstellar colonies. Remember, Admiral Torres continued, our primary mission is reconnaissance. We gather intelligence, identify threats, and develop countermeasures. We are not here to engage in a direct confrontation unless absolutely necessary. Commander Voss stepped forward, his mechanical components gleaming under the bridge lighting. Tactical teams are standing by. If these things want to fight, we'll give them one they won't forget. Maya felt a chill run down her spine. Based on her analysis, the collective would welcome a fight. Every human they captured would become another weapon in their arsenal, complete with tactical knowledge and combat experience. Traditional military thinking might not be enough to defeat an enemy that grew stronger with every victory. Dropping out of hyperspace in 10 seconds, the navigation officer announced, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The swirling energy field collapsed and suddenly they were looking at the Proxima system. Maya's breath caught in her throat. The transformation was beyond anything she had imagined. Where Proxima Centauri b had once been a thriving agricultural world, now a massive organic structure pulsed with bioluminescent activity. The planet's surface was covered in what looked like neural tissue, with branching networks that stretched from the poles to the equator. Orbital installations that had once been human space stations now resembled giant seed pods, connected to the planet by streams of organic matter. Dear God, Dr. Thorne whispered, the entire planet has been converted into some kind of biological computer. Scholar Zephyr's 4 arms moved in complex patterns that Maya recognized as his species' equivalent of prayer. The pattern of consumption, he said, his musical voice heavy with sorrow. I have heard legends of such things from the deep archives. Entire civilizations devoured and repurposed into thinking machines. Captain Reeves was studying the tactical display with professional intensity. I count 47 large vessels in orbit, plus hundreds of smaller craft, all showing the same biomechanical signatures we saw in the reconnaissance data. Sir, the communications officer called out, we're receiving a transmission from the planet's surface. It's on human frequencies. Admiral Torres straightened. Put it through. The speakers crackled to life and a voice that was unmistakably human filled the bridge. But there was something wrong with it. A hollow quality that made Maya's skin crawl. Greetings, brothers and sisters of Earth, the voice said, using perfect diplomatic protocol. We are the collective. We offer you the gift of unity, the blessing of shared consciousness. Join us willingly and your transition will be gentle. Resist and you will still join us, but the process will be unpleasant. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Maya realized that the voice had been familiar. She had heard it before in diplomatic recordings. It belonged to Ambassador Sarah Mitchell, who had been stationed on Proxima Centauri b when the colonies went dark. They're using our own people as spokespeople, Admiral Torres said grimly, trying to make conversion seem like a choice rather than conquest. Maya stepped forward, her heart pounding but her voice steady. Admiral, I need to study one of those vessels up close. The biomechanical integration process has to have weaknesses. If I can understand how the collective controls its hosts, I might be able to find a way to disrupt the connection. Commander Voss turned his cybernetic eye toward her. You want to get close to those things? Kid, that's suicide. The moment they detect us, we'll be swarmed by more ships than we can handle. Not if we use stealth technology, Marcus Webb interjected. I've been analyzing their sensor patterns. The collective uses biological detection methods. They're looking for life signs and neural activity. But I can mask our signatures using quantum dampening fields. To them we'll look like space debris. Captain Reeves nodded approvingly. A small reconnaissance team could get close enough to study their technology without triggering a full-scale engagement. I volunteer to lead the mission. Maya felt a surge of determination. This was her chance to prove that all those years of being overlooked had prepared her for something important. I need to be on that team. I'm the only one who understands the biological aspects of what we're dealing with. Dr. Thorne placed a hand on her shoulder. Maya, you've never been in combat. This isn't a laboratory exercise. Neither was growing up on Kepler 442b, Maya replied. I've spent my entire life studying alien organisms that could kill me if I made a single mistake. This is just another predator. It's just bigger than the ones I'm used to. Admiral Torres studied her for a long moment, weighing risks and possibilities. Finally, he nodded. Assemble a team. 4 personnel maximum, stealth-equipped shuttle in and out within 6 hours. But Chen, the moment things go wrong, you abort the mission. We can't afford to lose our best chance at understanding these things. As the team prepared for what might be a suicide mission, Maya felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. Somewhere on the planet below, millions of humans were trapped in their own bodies, forced to serve an alien intelligence while retaining full awareness of their fate. She thought of Ambassador Mitchell, probably still conscious somewhere inside the collective's network, knowing that her voice was being used to lure more victims into the same horrible trap. For the first time in her life, Maya's knowledge might be the key to saving not just human civilization, but human souls. The overlooked student was about to face the ultimate test of everything she had learned. The stealth shuttle Whisper was barely large enough for its 4-person crew, its interior cramped with equipment and life support systems. Maya found herself pressed against Captain Reeves as they approached the outer edge of the collective's fleet, their quantum-dampening field hopefully rendering them invisible to alien sensors. Marcus Webb hunched over his console, fingers dancing across holographic interfaces as he monitored their stealth systems. "Masking is holding," he whispered, though sound probably couldn't carry through space anyway. To their biosensors were just another piece of space debris. Dr. Thorne was studying the alien vessels through the shuttle's enhanced optical systems, her silver eyes reflecting the data streams. "The level of integration is extraordinary," she murmured. "Those ships aren't just using organic components, they're grown from what used to be human spacecraft." "Look at the underlying structure." Maya peered over her shoulder at the display. What she saw made her stomach turn. The graceful curves of the alien vessels weren't entirely alien after all. Buried beneath layers of organic growth, she could make out the angular framework of human engineering. Cargo haulers, passenger liners, even military vessels, all transformed into something that was neither fully organic nor technological. The collective doesn't just convert people, Maya realized. It converts everything. Our tools, our ships, our entire infrastructure becomes part of their network. Captain Reeves guided the shuttle closer to what had once been a human destroyer. The vessel's hull pulsed with veins of bioluminescent material, and Maya could see movement beneath the organic surface, something that might once have been crew members, now integrated into the ship's biological systems. "There," she pointed to a section where the transformation was incomplete. "We can see the original hull plating. If I can get a sample of the organic material, I might be able to understand how the conversion process works." "Getting samples means going EVA," Captain Reeves said grimly, "in full exposure to whatever sensors they might have. One mistake and we're not just dead. We become part of their fleet." Maya was already reaching for her environmental suit. "The risk is worth it. If we can understand the biological mechanism, we might be able to develop a weapon that targets the organic components, while leaving the human hosts intact." The EVA suit felt bulky and unfamiliar, compared to the lightweight gear she was used to at the academy. As the shuttle's airlock cycled, Maya tried to calm her racing heart. She had never performed a spacewalk before, let alone one this close to hostile alien vessels. The converted destroyer loomed above them like a sleeping giant. Up close, Maya could see that the organic material covering the hull moved with a rhythm that suggested a vast, slow heartbeat. Nodules along the surface pulsed with different colors, creating patterns that reminded her of neural activity. Using her suit's maneuvering thrusters, Maya approached one of the less integrated sections of the hull. Here, human metal was still visible beneath a thin layer of what looked like purple moss. She activated her sample collection tool and carefully scraped away a small portion of the organic material. The moment her tool touched the surface, the entire ship seemed to shudder. The bioluminescent patterns across the hull began pulsing faster, and Maya heard Captain Reeves's urgent voice through her comm system. "Chen, get out of there. The whole fleet is starting to wake up." Maya grabbed another sample and kicked away from the hull, her heart pounding as she watched the destroyer's surface come alive with activity. Tendrils of organic material began reaching toward her, guided by some intelligence she couldn't see. She fired her thrusters at maximum and rocketed back toward the Whisper, where Captain Reeves was already cycling the airlock. Behind her, the converted ships were beginning to move, their biomechanical sensors sweeping space for whatever had disturbed their dormant colleague. "Go, go, go," Maya shouted as she tumbled through the airlock. Captain Reeves slammed the emergency seal and fired the shuttle's engines before Maya had even removed her helmet. Marcus Webb's fingers flew over his console as he tried to maintain their stealth field. "They know something's here," he reported. "Their search patterns are getting more sophisticated. The quantum masking won't hold much longer." Through the shuttle's rear viewport, Maya could see dozens of alien vessels converging on their location. The ships moved with an eerie coordination that spoke of shared intelligence. No confusion, no wasted motion, just efficient predatory hunting behavior. Can we make it back to the Prometheus? Dr. Thorne asked, strapping herself into her acceleration couch. Not at sublight speeds, Captain Reeves replied. We need a distraction, something to draw their attention away from us. Maya's mind raced as she studied the sample containers in her hands. The organic material was still active, pulsing with the same rhythm she had observed on the ship's hull, but there was something else, a pattern within the pattern that reminded her of communication protocols. Marcus, she said suddenly, can you interface with this biological material? It's still connected to their network. Webb looked at her as if she had suggested juggling live grenades. You want me to hack into their collective consciousness? That's not just dangerous, it's probably impossible. Not hack, Maya corrected. Communicate. This isn't just biological tissue, it's a living computer terminal. If we can figure out how to speak their language, we might be able to send false information through their network. The shuttle shuddered as something large passed overhead. Through the viewports, Maya could see a massive bioship extending sensory tendrils in their direction. Whatever was hunting them was getting closer. Dr. Thorne leaned forward, her silver eyes bright with understanding. You're thinking of psychological warfare. If we can introduce confusion into their network, we can buy ourselves time to escape, Maya finished. But more importantly, we might be able to learn how their consciousness integration works. If there's a way to reverse the process, Marcus Webb was already connecting his equipment to Maya's sample container. This is insane, he muttered. But insane might be our only option right now. The biological material is definitely transmitting data. Give me a few minutes to decode the signal patterns. The shuttle continued its desperate flight through the converted fleet, with Captain Reeves using every trick of military piloting to avoid detection. Outside, the alien ships moved in perfect synchronization, their search becoming more focused with each passing moment. Got something, Marcus announced. The biological material is sending status reports through the network. Heartbeat, oxygen levels, structural integrity. It's like a continuous medical diagnostic. Maya felt a surge of excitement. Can you modify the signal? Make it report false information? Maybe, Marcus said, his fingers dancing over holographic interfaces. But what kind of false information? Maya thought back to her studies of parasitic organisms on Kepler 442b. She had learned that the most effective way to combat a parasitic infection wasn't always direct attack. Sometimes, the best strategy was to confuse the parasite's coordination mechanisms. Tell the network that the hosts are sick, she said. Report symptoms that don't make sense. Neurological conflicts, immune system failures, anything that would make the collective question its control mechanisms. Marcus began inputting commands, his modified signals piggybacking on the sample's natural transmissions. Almost immediately, the effects were visible. The pursuing ships began to move erratically, their perfect coordination breaking down as conflicting status reports flooded their shared consciousness. It's working, Captain Reeves said with amazement. They're confused, backing off from their search pattern. But Maya was already thinking beyond their immediate escape. The samples she had collected and the connection Marcus had established with the collective's network represented something unprecedented. Actual communication with an alien intelligence that had seemed completely hostile. For the first time since arriving in the Proxima system, she began to believe that there might be a way to save the converted humans. The overlooked student had found a crack in what had seemed like an impenetrable alien fortress. Now she just had to figure out how to exploit it before the collective adapted to their interference. The return to the Prometheus felt like emerging from a nightmare. As their shuttle docked with the main ship, Maya clutched the sample containers that might hold the key to humanity's survival. The biological material inside continued to pulse with alien life, its bioluminescent patterns now seeming almost like a language she was beginning to understand. Admiral Torres was waiting in the hangar bay, his expression tense with barely controlled anxiety. "Report," he demanded as soon as Captain Reeves stepped off the shuttle. "The situation is worse than we thought," Reeves replied grimly. "The entire fleet has been converted from human vessels. The collective isn't just conquering our colonies, it's recycling our own technology against us." Dr. Thorne handed over the preliminary data from their reconnaissance. But Chen made a breakthrough. "She's established actual communication with their network." Maya stepped forward, holding up the sample containers. "Admiral, The collective operates on biological principles I recognize from parasitic organisms on my homeworld. It's not truly hostile. It's following evolutionary imperatives. It converts other species because that's how it reproduces and expands. Admiral Torres studied the pulsing organic material with a mixture of fascination and revulsion. Are you saying we can negotiate with these things? More than that, Maya replied, her excitement building as the implications became clear. I think we can reprogram them. The collective's network is based on biological chemistry, not digital code. If we can introduce the right biochemical signals, we might be able to alter their fundamental behavior patterns. Marcus Webb was already setting up equipment in the ship's main laboratory. The communication protocols are unlike anything I've ever seen, he said, connecting his analysis systems to Maya's samples. It's not just data transmission, it's actual biological conversation, like cells talking to each other in a vast organism. Scholar Zephyr arrived as they were beginning their detailed analysis, his forearms carrying ancient texts from his people's archives. I have consulted the deep records, he announced. There are legends of the collective from over 10,000 years ago. They have done this before to other civilizations. The room fell silent. Maya looked up from her microscope, where she had been studying the cellular structure of the alien material. What happened to those other civilizations? They were consumed, Scholar Zephyr replied. But the records also speak of a great victory, a species that found a way to reverse the collective's influence. The details were lost, but the legend speaks of turning the devourers against themselves. Maya felt pieces of a vast puzzle clicking together in her mind. That's exactly what we did when we confused their search patterns. We used their own communication system to send contradictory information. But what if we could go further? She turned to Marcus, who was deep in analysis of the biological signals. Can you map the structure of their command hierarchy? Every hive mind has to have some kind of central control system. Already working on it, Marcus replied, holographic displays showing complex network diagrams. There's definitely a hierarchical structure, but it's not centralized the way our systems are. It's more like a biological parliament. Different nodes vote on decisions based on shared information. Dr. Thorne leaned over Maya's shoulder to study the microscopic images. The individual consciousness nodes we identified earlier. They're not just preserved memories. They're active participants in the decision-making process. The collective doesn't just use converted beings as tools. It incorporates their knowledge and reasoning into its own thinking. Maya's breath caught as the full implications hit her. That means Ambassador Mitchell and the other converted humans are still in there, still thinking and reasoning. They're just outvoted by the alien components of the network. Admiral Torres stepped closer to the analysis station. Are you suggesting we can communicate with our own people through this network? More than communicate, Maya said, her voice growing stronger with conviction. We can give them the tools to fight back from the inside. If we can introduce enough contradictory information into the network, we might be able to create a cascade failure in the collective's decision-making process. Captain Reeves frowned. That sounds like psychological warfare on a massive scale. How do we even begin to implement something like that? Maya was already formulating a plan, drawing on everything she had learned about predator-prey relationships and biological adaptation. We use their own strengths against them. The collective's greatest advantage is its perfect communication and coordination, but that's also its greatest weakness. If we can disrupt the communication, the coordination breaks down. She turned to the holographic display showing the network structure.
Marcus, can you create a viral program that spreads through biological pathways instead of digital ones?
Something that carries contradictory commands but looks like legitimate network traffic? Marcus's eyes lit up with understanding. A biological Trojan horse. It would have to be incredibly sophisticated, but yes, I think it's possible. We'd need to encode the program into synthetic organic material that mimics their natural network components. And we'd need to introduce it into their system without triggering their immune responses, Dr. Thorne added. The collective would recognize foreign biological material and attempt to neutralize it. Maya smiled, feeling pieces of knowledge from years of studying alien biology coming together in new patterns. Not if we disguise it as something they want to incorporate. The collective seeks new knowledge and capabilities. That's why it converts other species. If we can make our viral program look like a beneficial upgrade, they'll welcome it into their network voluntarily, Scholar Zephyr finished, his musical voice carrying a note of admiration. You propose to offer them a gift that is actually a weapon. Admiral Torres was studying the tactical implications. How long would it take to develop this biological virus? Maya looked at Marcus, who was already running calculations on his analysis systems. With the ship's laboratory facilities and the samples we've collected, maybe 12 hours for a basic version. But we'd only get one chance. Once the collective identifies the threat, they'll adapt their defenses. Then we'd better make it count, the Admiral replied. Chen, I'm giving you full access to all ship resources. Whatever you need, you get. The fate of 12 worlds depends on this working. As the team dispersed to begin their desperate work, Maya felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders once again. But this time it felt different. This time she wasn't the overlooked student trying to prove herself. She was the expert that others were turning to for solutions. In her pocket, her personal communicator buzzed with a message from the academy, probably another notice about missed classes or overdue assignments. Maya deleted it without reading. Right now she had more important lessons to learn. The overlooked student was about to teach the universe's most dangerous predator that humans were not as helpless as they appeared. And she was going to do it using the very knowledge that her classmates had dismissed as useless academic theory. 12 hours to save human civilization. Maya cracked her knuckles and got to work. 11 hours and 37 minutes later, Maya stood in the Prometheus's laboratory surrounded by the most complex biological creation she had ever attempted. The synthetic organism pulsed in its containment field, indistinguishable from the collective's own organic material except for the microscopic payload it carried, a set of biochemical instructions that would propagate through the alien network like a chain reaction. Final systems check, she announced, her voice hoarse from hours of constant work. Marcus Webb stood beside her, his cybernetic interfaces glowing as he monitored the digital components of their creation. Dr. Thorne ran biochemical analyses while Scholar Zephyr consulted pattern recognition algorithms that his species had developed over millennia. Biological masking is perfect, Dr. Thorne reported. To the collective sensors, this will look like a valuable new adaptation, enhanced neural processing capabilities with improved efficiency ratings. Marcus nodded agreement. The programming is embedded in the DNA structure itself. Once it integrates with their network, it will begin rewriting command protocols at the cellular level. Instead of perfect coordination, they'll start receiving contradictory orders from different parts of their own hierarchy. And the human consciousness nodes? Maya asked the question that had kept her awake for the past day. Protected, Scholar Zephyr confirmed. The viral program is designed to enhance human neural patterns while disrupting alien control mechanisms. Your people will not only maintain their awareness, they will regain the ability to influence network decisions. Admiral Torres entered the laboratory, his cybernetic arm interfaced with the ship's tactical systems. The collective fleet is moving toward Earth. We have perhaps 6 hours before they're close enough to threaten the home system. Are we ready? Maya looked at her creation one last time. In her hands, she held either humanity's salvation or its final doom. If the biological virus worked, they could free the converted colonies and turn the collective's own fleet against itself. If it failed, they would have revealed their position to an enemy that was already overwhelmingly powerful. We're ready, she said simply. The plan was elegantly simple. Captain Reeves would pilot a modified probe containing the viral organism into the heart of the collective fleet. The probe would be designed to look like a surrender beacon, a common enough occurrence when outmatched vessels faced the collective's overwhelming forces. When the aliens moved to incorporate the probe and its supposed human crew into their network, the biological virus would begin its work. Maya watched from the Prometheus's bridge as the probe launched toward the converted planet that had once been Proxima Centauri b. The tiny vessel looked pathetically small against the backdrop of the massive alien fleet, but she knew that sometimes the smallest changes could topple the largest systems. Probe is being scanned by lead vessels, the communications officer reported. They're detecting human life signs and surrender protocols. Through the ship's sensors, Maya could see tendrils of organic material reaching out from the nearest collective vessel to envelop the probe. In just moments, her creation would either begin the liberation of human civilization or ensure its complete destruction. Contact. Marcus announced. The viral program is integrating with their network, spreading through biological channels, now hitting secondary nodes, cascading through the fleet command structure. For several tense minutes, nothing seemed to happen. The collective fleet continued its inexorable advance toward Earth, showing no signs of the chaos that should have been building within their shared consciousness. Maya began to wonder if their desperate plan had failed entirely. Then the first ship began to drift off course. It was subtle at first, just a slight deviation from the perfect formation that had characterized the collective's movements. But within minutes, the deviation became a wobble, and the wobble became complete confusion as the vessel's biomechanical systems received contradictory navigation commands. "It's working," Dr. Thorne breathed, watching as the disruption spread from ship to ship like a biological plague. The viral program is rewriting their coordination protocols. But Maya was watching something even more significant. Through the enhanced sensors, she could see activity on the surface of the converted planet. The vast neural networks that covered Proxima Centauri b were flickering, their bioluminescent patterns shifting from the smooth coordination of the collective to something more chaotic, more human. "Admiral," the communications officer called out, "we're receiving transmissions from the planet's surface. Multiple human voices, sir." "Put them through," Admiral Torres ordered. The bridge speakers crackled to life, but instead of the hollow controlled voice they had heard before, there was something wonderfully familiar. Human confusion, human anger, and human determination. "This is Ambassador Sarah Mitchell of the Proxima Colony," a voice said, and Maya could hear the strain of someone fighting for control. We can think again. Whatever you did, it's working. The alien influence is weakening." More voices joined in, creating a chaos of reports as converted humans across the system began to regain control of their own thoughts. They were still physically integrated with the collective's biological network, but their minds were their own again. "Maya," Dr. Thorne said softly, "you did it. You actually did it." But Maya was still watching the tactical displays, analyzing the collective's response to their attack. The alien components of the network were adapting, trying to isolate the infected areas and maintain control. She could see sections of the fleet beginning to separate from the main group, probably in an attempt to prevent further contamination. "This is just the beginning," she said. "The pure collective elements are trying to quarantine the affected areas. We need to press our advantage before they can adapt." Admiral Torres was already issuing orders. "All ships advance on the collective fleet. Target the vessels showing signs of confusion first. Those are the ones with the highest concentration of human crews." The battle that followed was unlike anything in human military history. Instead of simply destroying enemy vessels, the human fleet worked to disable the biomechanical components while preserving the organic sections that contained converted humans. Maya found herself coordinating rescue operations alongside combat missions, using her knowledge of collective biology to identify which ships could be safely boarded. The tide turned when Ambassador Mitchell managed to send tactical information directly through the collective's own network. With inside knowledge of alien capabilities and weaknesses, the human fleet began systematically dismantling the collective's advantages. But the most important victory came when the first converted ship switched sides entirely. The crew, now free to think for themselves, turned their vessel's weapons against their former captors. Other ships followed, and soon the collective found itself fighting a civil war within its own ranks. 24 hours after Maya's biological virus had first infected the network, the last pure collective vessel fled the Proxima system. The converted ships remained, but they were now crewed by humans who had remembered what freedom meant. Standing in the laboratory where she had created the weapon that saved human civilization, Maya received a communication from Earth that she had never expected. The Galactic Defense Force was offering her a full commission as a commander in their xenobiology division. The Academy was waiving all her remaining fees and offering her any research position she wanted. But the message that meant the most came from Proxima Centauri b itself. Ambassador Mitchell, now freed from alien control but still integrated with advanced biological technology, had sent a personal thank you. "You saw what others missed," the message said. "You found strength in what appeared to be our greatest weakness. The galaxy is lucky to have minds like yours protecting it." Maya smiled as she prepared her response. She thought of her classmates back at the academy, who had dismissed her as a charity case from the outer colonies. She thought of Professor Valdris, who had questioned her knowledge of alien biology. Most of all, she thought of Zara Kellerman, who had called her pathetic for trying so hard to prove herself. The overlooked student had indeed proven herself, but not in any way she could have imagined. She had saved human civilization not through military might or technological superiority, but through the simple act of understanding that even the most alien minds followed patterns that could be recognized and influenced. As the Prometheus began its journey back to Earth, Maya returned to her studies. There were other species in the galaxy, other potential threats that humanity might face. And when those challenges came, the girl who had once been invisible in the back of the classroom would be ready to meet them. The universe was vast and dangerous, but it had underestimated humanity's greatest weapon: the quiet determination of those who spent their lives trying to understand, rather than destroy. Maya Chen, no longer overlooked, would make sure it never made that mistake again.